All right, today on the Peanut Butter and Mountain podcast, we have Matt Lyons. I guarantee you've seen his content all over the internet before, Instagram and TikTok, but he's also a Appalachian Trail and Pacific Crest Trail thru hiker. So in today's episode, we're going to get into him hiking the PCT, a giant failure that he actually had on it, and then how he came back from that and then crushed it in 2022. We get into a little bit of the AT, some of the long trail, and then we're going to get into a lot of his content creation process and the things that work for him and the things that maybe haven't, or the things that he's working on. This is a super great episode. Matt is a funny dude. I mean, you can just tell just from talking to him, he's just a genuine great guy. I could talk to him for a few more hours. So, you know, it was a really, really good and genuine episode where you're going to learn a lot from. Now, one thing with the video, if you're watching this on YouTube, you're going to notice Matt's video. Well, let's just put it this way. That's not how Matt looks like in real life, and that's not how he looked like on my video. So I don't know what happened in the rendering process here, but I cannot get the video to look normal at all. So if you're listening on Spotify and you want to go see what this video looks like and kind of have a laugh, go over to my YouTube channel and check out the podcast episode there. You know, what's a Peanut Butter and Mountains podcast without a little bit of fuck in it? Always seems to be a little bit of that in every single episode. You'd think podcasting was so easy, but you know, sometimes there's things out of your control. So anyway, enjoy this podcast. So if you're on Instagram or TikTok, I guarantee you've came across today's guest. He's an online personality, self-proclaimed cringe comedian, and somewhat of an outdoorsman. And all that was taken from his website, which I thought was hilarious. But yeah, I think he really is an outdoorsman. Like we were just talking about, he's completed the Appalachian Trail and the PCT. And I'd love to welcome today Matt Lyons. How's it going, dude?
Good. How are you, Chad? Good to see you. Thanks for having me on. Psyched to be here.
I was going to say before our podcast, but dude, if I had a quarter for every person that has sent me one of your videos because they thought it related to me or whatever, man, I would be taking over Bezos, dude. I mean, it's been a ride for you, dude, man. And we kind of joined actually TikTok, I think around the same time back.
Yeah. I remember right? Back in 2020.
Yeah. Those are some wild times on TikTok.
That's way back. I get a throwback video every once in a while. And I'm like, what was I doing? It was like,
I know.
I was making like some of the worst quality content on the internet. And I'm like,
what was it that you were making back then?
I was kind of just doing a lot of like trending audios. And I originally started by posting some like compilation videos from my AT thru hike because I hiked in 2019.
Yes.
And so I started getting a couple comments. Like one of them went viral and I got a couple comments about like, what's going on? How do I do this? What kind of gear do I bring? And I made some just informative videos about the AT. And then that turned into like using the trending audios to, you know how it goes, to make content revolving around thru hiking. And that kind of turned into like skit type videos where I would play a character and it evolved from there.
Yeah. So at first it was, and dude, it was so easy to kind of go viral on TikTok back in 20.
Yeah.
Compared to now anyway.
It's tough right now. It's saturated.
It's very saturated. So it almost seems like that's kind of where your content shifted actually, which was kind of maybe a year or two ago to where you were doing maybe some more of the trending audio, but then all of a sudden it went into these original skits. What was kind of behind that?
I just found that the engagement was a little higher because I did a couple back in like 2021, where I would like pick a city, like an outdoorsy city, like Bend, Oregon, or Bozeman or something like that. And I would just kind of create a character for that city. And I found that the engagement on those videos did really well and people kind of like ate that up. And I found it really fun to create them because I'd been to all those cities, the ones that I did originally. And so I kind of like knew the culture there and things that people liked to do in those areas. And I kind of played off that and people really resonated with it. They're like, yes, this guy must live here. And I'm like, I don't live there, but I
I
would
know,
love
dude.
to.
You do nail that stuff. Like the Boulder ones, Bend. I mean, you nail these ones, and you've probably, you've spent a few days in them probably each. But how do you go in there and like really get into the mind of the people that would be kind of living there?
Um, I feel like I kind of am those people a little bit. That's the only thing. Like a lot of comments are trying to like hate, and they're like, "Oh, this guy's just making fun of himself," and I'm like, I am making fun of myself in a lot of ways. And so, having gone to those places, I'm able to pick up on some like local things, like places people go, restaurants, breweries,
Right.
outdoor locations, like Smith Rock and Bend, right? And
Totally.
so I can kind of like plug those into the video, and people are like, "This guy nailed it," and I'm like, at the end of the day, I just mentioned a location that I Googled that's around that place, you know?
Yeah.
Like, but still, like, it's kind of cool because I'm able to kind of resonate with so many different populations around the country. And I feel like I can connect with those people now, which is sweet. And it makes me realize, like, oh, maybe I want to move to that place because these people seem really cool. Right.
Interesting. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
because you're out on the East Coast right now.
Yeah. East Coast, pretty much my whole life. I grew up in Connecticut, born in Philly, and then I lived in New Hampshire, and now I'm in Boston. So,
Wow. Okay.
yeah.
So, and we mentioned, and we'll talk about this here in a second, but you did the PCT. Were you inspired at all to move out west? Is there anything in your brain right now where you're after doing the PCT thinking, "Whoa, dude, I could move out there"?
Yeah, I mean, going to the PCT, I was like, wow, the scenery on here is like unmatched compared to the East Coast. Obviously, there's some like really cool spots on the East, but like the PCT, every corner you turn was like just like a sweeping vista. I'm like, this is
Right.
so cool. There's so much space out here.
Right.
Whereas in Boston, if I want to go get like a gallon of milk, I have to pretty much fend through like 100 people on the road to get there. It's like
Yeah.
so population dense out here. And going to the West, just having all that open space and people are in similar mindsets of like, I just love the outdoors. It's definitely inspired me to move out. But the hardest part is just kind of like getting away from family. And I found it hard to like make that jump. So,
As someone that's moved, because I used to live in the Midwest. So
mhm,
I moved about a decade ago out west.
yep,
And I will agree that I think the hardest part is holidays,
yeah,
being away from family for the
yep,
most part. Holidays were super hard the first few years that I moved out here. As I've progressed, it hasn't been as bad, or I'll just fly back for those more,
yeah,
Christmas and stuff like that. And that helps a lot.
right.
But man, I do not regret the decision.
Oh, I
Because
don't doubt it. Yeah.
you know how you were just talking about skiing on the we were talking about earlier before recording, we were talking about skiing on the East Coast, the
Mhm.
ice and the
Oh,
chatter. I mean,
yeah,
that's where
yeah,
I learned the same way, man.
yep,
Learning on ice in
Ice
Wisconsin.
Coast. Yeah.
Yeah, the ice coast, and then it's like you have to learn how to ride powder out
Oh,
here.
I know. It's
I didn't
exhausting.
understand. Yeah, I didn't understand why people liked powder. I was like, this is hard as shit to
Yeah,
ride.
yeah. I feel like it's such a workout. If you have, like, deep powder and you don't have any speed, you're just, like, sinking. It's like quicksand.
Sinking, bro. We just got a powder day a couple days ago, and me and this girl went up there, and you're taking the chairlift over these powder runs, and you're just seeing people. It looks like a battlefield out there,
Yeah,
man. It's
yeah.
carnage everywhere. People
Oh,
are
yeah.
just eating shit,
Yep.
nose in the ground, people flying, their bodies everywhere, man.
Oh,
It's the
yeah.
funniest thing. But it's true, man. It's a different skill set than riding on ice,
Yeah.
obviously.
I think I've had, like, 1, maybe 2 powder days on the East Coast, and it was,
Yeah.
they were some of the best days. It was usually a weekday, like, right after a
Yeah.
storm. I was already near the mountain, people are at work, and I just, like, sent it up there,
Yeah.
and it was, like, some of the best riding, but that seems to be
Yeah.
a common thing in Colorado and out west, so
They are powder snobs, let me tell you. So coming from the East and the Midwest, whenever it's any kind of packed powder day, they don't like it. They're like,
Mhm.
"Whatever, man." I'm thinking, "Dude, this is great. If I
Yep.
fall, it doesn't hurt."
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. I'm gonna, like, send it a little harder than I would out here.
Yeah, exactly. Dude, that's awesome.
I'm getting
Well,
to the
so
point where
yes.
I'm like I feel like I'm getting to an age where I would snap in half if I do anything, like, remotely crazy. Like, if I get, like, a foot of air, if I fell incorrectly, I'd be in the hospital. There's no doubt.
Well, definitely. Well,
Yeah.
definitely on the ice, dude.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure,
Yeah.
man. Well, so like we said, so Matt hikes the PCT and the AT. So when was the AT? In 19, I think, right?
Yeah, 2019. Yeah.
2019. So now the thing I really wanted to talk to Matt about was in 2021, he went and he was going to do a solo attempt of the PCT starting in Washington. And kind of throughout that, it sounds like I think he got it to about a weekend, maybe 2 weeks in,
Yeah,
something
like
like that.
6-7 days. Yeah, just about a week.
6-7 days in,
Yeah.
and he had to get off trail. So, can you walk us through what was going on there? Sounds like you got injured, and what did you learn through that whole thing? Because I mean, that can be humbling,
Oh
right?
yeah. No, I was a mess. I was so like leading up to it, my brother and my friend were helping me like document the journey. We were gonna put together a film for the hike. We still are, but that year we actually road tripped out from the East Coast. So we drove from Connecticut out to Harts Pass in Washington. So it was like a 4-day trek. I mean, it was fun. I was with friends and my brother. They dropped me off.
Oh
I
my
had gotten
god!
injured like 2 months before that. Not sure if my knee would be holding up for the hike. So I was nervous going into it. And my plan was to just kind of stretch really regularly, really short miles. And so I started north to the Canadian border from Harts Pass, and I made it like 5 miles and I was doing really well. And then all of a sudden I got this shooting pain. And so I set up camp for the night. And for those that don't know, it's 30 miles north to the border and then 30 miles back to Harts Pass where you started. So it's like a 60-mile intro to this hike, which if I'm
Wow.
doing 7 miles a day, that's a lot of food I have to bring. That's like so much I have to bring out there to make it there and back. So I got to that first night and I'm like, if I'm in this much pain, am I going to be able to make it to the border and back with the food in my pack? And so I kind of just had a realization that like I shouldn't be doing this right now. I walked back, went into town, stayed at a hostel for like a night or two. My knee was feeling okay. And so I started back southbound. I skipped the border push, turned, went back to the trail and started hiking southbound. And um, I made it like 3 days. I was popping like 8 ibuprofen a day, which was definitely not healthy. And
Wow.
yeah. And so I got to this little town called Stehekin, and my knee was pretty painful then. And then we had a big stretch coming up. And I started hiking into that big stretch. I felt the shooting pain in my knee, and I just had to sit down. And I realized I'm not going to be able to do this year. After all that, like my knee's just not going to let me do it, which was terrible. I felt like I was letting people down. It was pretty tragic. But at the end of the day, I just knew that was what was best for me, and the trail's always going to be there. So I turned back to Stehekin, got a ride to Seattle, ended up flying home and calling it for the year, just because I knew I had to figure something else out with my knee, or else it wasn't going to happen. So taught me a lot about like resiliency. Like, am I going to come back and do this again? Like, can I set my mind to do that after such like a tragic end to this hike this year? Like, what can I do to get back out there and feel a little bit better about it? So
Wow.
big,
Okay.
yeah, big experience.
Huge. Okay. So first of all, what was the injury to the knee?
So it turns out it was just like severe inflammation of my IT band.
Okay.
So it was basically rubbing against the top of my tibia. It's like that connective tissue that runs from the bottom of your knee up to your hip, and that just got really tight, and it was rubbing against, and some fluid built up between my knee and my IT band, and that just kept flaring up. I just didn't give it enough time to
Really?
heal. Yeah.
Did they say what that was from?
It was so I went on a training hike in New Hampshire like a couple months before that, and I just pushed it a little bit too hard. And
Interesting.
I was like, I had to end up limping out 10 miles back to my car on that hike. And I,
Ah.
at
So
that
how
point, thought that my through hike was not going to happen. And so I went through like a month of physical therapy. I had like a really quick turnaround, and I thought I'd give it a shot, and it just didn't work.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Wow. Okay.
yeah.
So crazy. Okay. So that all happens. So you have to hike out, you have to drive all the way back 4 days with all of this stuff in your head.
Yeah, so I didn't end up driving back. I ended up, so they drove to Seattle. They had a rental car. They dropped it
Okay.
off and flew home like 2 days before I did. So they were
Oh,
spending like 4 days in
nice.
Seattle. They're like texting me, like, how's the trail? I'm like, I got off. And so they were
Yeah.
like back on the East Coast. I got a ride to Seattle, hung out with a friend for a couple days, and then flew back to the East Coast.
So when you're sitting there in the plane ride by yourself, what's going through your head?
Like letting people down. My brother and friend had like
Yeah.
put aside so much time to help me with this video project, and I had taken off. I quit my job pretty much. I was teaching at the time, so I left that job. So I'm like, what am I gonna do? I want to hike the trail, but obviously it's not gonna happen this year. Like, what can I do? What am I gonna do in the meantime? Just a lot of like thoughts racing through my head about what the next year held in store. So
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Okay. So that was, what was that? Summer? No. Was that summer?
that was July. Yes, so it was like
Okay.
right around the 4th of July.
Okay. So that was around the 4th of July. So going into fall, what did you do to kind of, what was your mindset shift around that time? And what did you kind of do? Because obviously you went through and you hiked it in the next year,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
what was the big change?
So I got back and I realized, one, I don't have a job. I already kind of committed to this, and I knew I was gonna get back on the trail. I just didn't know if it would be a year from then or 2 years or what after retirement, like what was the deal gonna be. And
Right.
so I kind of made a commitment to try and do it the next year. And so I got a long-term substitute position in my hometown, at the schools that I actually
Mm,
went to. So I was still in education. I was able to go in every day, work consistently, make money. And in the meantime, I just went to the gym like every day.
hell yeah.
I actually got pretty yoked in my
You
opinion.
did.
But and I'm like,
Yeah.
damn, I want to get back to that state. But it definitely like inspired me to get back out on the trail and introduced me to like lifting, right? So I got in the gym, was
Right.
exercising a lot, stretching my knee, doing a lot of PT for my leg, and eventually just got like super strong and knew that the next year was going to be possible.
Hell yeah, dude.
So,
What I always kind of cringe when people say, "Oh, the trail is going to get you in shape." I can see where that can be. I can see where that can be true. But for me, I'm big into prepping my body as
hmm
well as I can because
yeah,
I don't want injury. I don't want preventable things to occur that could take me off.
yeah,
Either it's an ultra, it's a trail ride or whatever. And so it kind of sounds like is the gym something that's now stuck with you through this
yeah,
process?
yeah. I'm like, I go to the gym pretty regularly now. And so it's like a big part of my life. And it kind of keeps me active. So obviously, I'm not hiking a long trail right now. So it gives me some
Yeah,
outlet for physical activity. Being
right,
in Boston, there aren't a ton of hikes in the immediate area. So
right.
unless I'm getting up to the Whites or going elsewhere on the East Coast, it's like tough to get outside here. So I
Yeah.
found that the gym is a good outlet, allows me to move and stay active. I do go to the climbing gym too, which is fun. But
Oh, nice, dude.
yeah,
Cool.
yeah,
Yeah, well, and that's the thing too, right? Because when you come back from a through hike or something and you're moving all day,
hmm
8, 10, 12 hours a day, and now it's almost, even a 1 hour gym session doesn't even feel like that much. I mean,
oh
that
no,
almost feels easy, right?
no, yeah. I'm like, how was there a time where I was hiking 20
Right.
to 25 miles a day? Like looking at where I'm at right now, like how did I do that? And yeah, you were right. Like it is, you want to make sure you're being careful at the beginning because you don't want to injure yourself. But there is
Right.
some validity to like if you slowly, meticulously increase the mileage, your body will
Mhm.
adjust, right? But going out there and just like expecting like cold turkey, pushing 15 miles a day, you're gonna injure something. So
100%.
you got to be super
100.
careful about that. But yeah, I don't know how I did it with the long days on trail continuously, and
Well,
you
let's
probably feel the same way.
y yeah, well, let's kinda break that down. So, you ended up doing it in 2022, right?
hmm
And so what was that experience like, and how did it did you feel any kind of transformation from the hike on the PCT? Did it do anything for your content, do you feel like? Because the reason I asked that question is because I noticed when you and Kyle Hates Hiking,
Yep.
you guys both did it in the same year,
Hmm.
and you came back, and both of you guys actually, he blew up his YouTube channel more, you blew up on TikTok and Instagram more. And I
Yeah.
found that kind of interesting that after the both of you guys doing the PCT, that kind of happened. So yeah, what kind of what occurred on the PCT? Was there any kind of transformation there, and how did it help your content, do you feel?
Yeah, well, I think I just got a better idea of the West Coast and just like areas on the West Coast. So I
Yeah,
definitely I going into Bend, for example, all the towns that you go through, the Sierra, hiked through towns like Mammoth and the Tahoe area. I saw all these ski resorts. So it kind of opened my eyes to like how people live on the West Coast. And that kind
yeah,
of inspired some of my content post trail. I didn't end up posting a ton. I did post on TikTok and Instagram, but it was more just like daily recaps or like scenic shots or like trending audios. I didn't really do
right,
any of those skit type videos while I was on the trail.
yeah,
Um, but it definitely helped in the long run to be able to make those videos, I found. And it definitely gave me a lot of confidence in that too. Like a lot of people are under in the similar mindset in those towns. Like going to Bend, Oregon was super cool. I felt like I was in the presence of like 100 different Matt Lyons in that town, right? So we were all like the
yeah,
same person in a way.
yeah.
So it gave me the confidence to be able to make those videos and relate to those people on a more like personal and interest based level.
Yeah. So it's like kind of in the short term, you gave up posting consistently, but in the long term, it actually enhanced your content.
Yes, yeah, because most of my focus with content on the trail was with my camera because I knew I was filming for this documentary that we're working on.
Right.
And so it's not like immediately posting it to social media, but I got all these
Yeah.
shots. I got like 100 hours of footage, like a crazy amount of footage. And we've been using that to like work on this documentary. So that was kind of my main focus. And then just kind of interacting with people out there on the trail as well.
Heck yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Now, in every one of these trails or every kind of adventure, there's always kind of what I like to call turn back moments.
Hmm.
On your PCT hike in 2022, do you remember any of your turn back moments where you hit it and you thought, "Oh, dude, this could go either way, man. How I react to this situation can go either way." Do you remember any of those?
Yeah. There was one in particular, really. It
Yeah.
was in Northern California. Um, I basically, because I did a flip-flop hike, so my original goal was to hike southbound. In 2021, the snow levels in Washington were ideal. Like, could have hiked the whole trail. Fires then became an issue in California in 2021, but 2022, I had to flip-flop. So I started at the California-Oregon border and hiked northbound to Canada, and then flew back to Ashland, Oregon, and hiked southbound from the California-Oregon border where I started.
Mm.
And so on that northbound leg through Washington and Oregon, I met like an incredible group of people, was hiking with them the whole time. Some of them turned out to just be section hikers or northbounders. So when we got to Canada, it was like the peak. We were all like euphoric at the border. We made it. But then I flew back to California and it was like
Right.
blank slate. I was starting from
Right.
scratch. I wasn't in the North Cascades anymore, which is like just objectively beautiful. And I was in Northern California, which also beautiful, but not to the same degree, I think. And I was alone at the time. So I was hiking southbound. This section from Etna to Dunsmuir, which is just like really dry, hot, um, was just super lonely. It was like 100-mile stretch. I saw
Yeah.
three other humans. They were all
Wow.
hiking the opposite direction.
Wow.
And it was just like
Ooh.
a really depressing moment for me because I'm like, part of this hike is for me to interact with other people, right? I
Right.
like the camaraderie of like having a trail family or meeting people out there and like sharing the experience. And for this section, I was just alone. I was coming off that high being with that group and finishing in Canada. And now I have 1,600 miles of California to hike and I'm
Ooh.
solo. Yeah. Yeah. So
Wow.
that was the moment where I'm like, can I do this? Fortunately, somebody who I was hiking with northbound decided to come back and flipped south with me. So I met them after that 100-mile stretch in Dunsmuir. And from
Oh,
there, we were able to kind of build another trail family, and it improved significantly. But that was a struggle. That was like, I almost got off trail.
100, dude, 100 miles by yourself, 3 people that you're seeing going in the opposite direction's tough.
Yeah. Yeah. It was brutal. And some people love that. Some people love the solitude
Right.
and just like being on their own. And to a degree, I do as well. But I think just the kind of difference between that initial section and then this one was tough. Like going from that camaraderie and group of people to nothing was the biggest challenge.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like the rug almost feels like it's taken out of you or
Yeah.
taken out from under you,
Yeah. It felt
essentially.
like a loss, to be honest. Like I had lost
Yeah.
something super valuable to me.
Yeah, I did the Uinta Highline this year, and it was
Nice.
similar to it was 100 miles through the Uintas, which is I didn't realize how there's nobody there. There is nobody. It's same with that 100-mile
Yeah.
section, and I knew that going in that there wasn't gonna be anybody there, and I was going solo.
Hmm.
But and I think that is a unique challenge to get through, and
Yeah.
it's fun to do that at some points, but I also kind of realized that I do kind of how you were saying, I do enjoy meeting other people on I and enjoy the trail culture. I mean,
Right.
that's another reason why I'm really out there is because you meet these cool people, you get to experience all this stuff with other people, and just the culture around it is really alluring.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's one of the biggest reasons why I do it. Obviously, I love the scenery. I love the act of hiking.
Yeah.
But that's I'd say like 60% of the reason why I do it through hike
Yeah.
is because of the
That's a
people.
good percentage. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, okay, so if you had to sell me on hiking the PCT,
Yep.
what would you how would you sell that? Because I it's been bouncing in my head for a while.
Hmm. Yep.
But
And
I
you've done the JMT, right? You've done
JMT and I did
the
the
Uinta High
Colorado
Line. You
Trail.
did the Colorado
Yep,
Trail. So you've
yep.
seen
So
some
my
beautiful places. Yeah.
and dude, honestly, I was gonna go. This is probably the first time I'm saying this publicly. I was gonna go out to the long trail this year and do the long trail,
Nice.
bro. But I watched some videos of the long trail, and I'm thinking, you see day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, and I'm saying, dude, everything looks the same. It's a green tunnel.
It is.
I don't think I could do that, man.
It
I
is
don't think I
very
could do
similar.
that.
So, were you watching like northbounders on the long trail? People going north?
Yeah.
So I will say the first 100 miles of the long trail are go along the AT. So the AT and the long trail are together for the first 100 miles from Massachusetts to like Rutland area. And those are probably the least scenic miles on the long trail. So once you get north of Rutland, you get up towards like Camel's Hump, Mansfield, all of that. It gets pretty beautiful from what I've heard. I have a
Okay.
friend who lives in Burlington. He's hiked the long trail a couple times and he like swears by it. It's super cool. Definitely worth it. I'd recommend it in like September, October, like later in the year when it's drier, less muddy, leaves are changing color potentially. Like that's the ideal
Okay.
time.
Yeah, because
Um,
I don't like rain either.
yeah, I mean it was Vermont for me on the AT going through
Right.
it was June that I was going through like peak mud season. They just call it Vermont. It was like like this deep of mud always, and you have to kind of like skirt around it or just walk right through it. And that was pretty brutal. Vermont was a pretty dark time for me on the AT, but I can see how like in the fall, if you're with people and it's like it would be an
Right.
incredible experience. So
Okay.
that's my pitch on the long trail. The PCT
Okay.
though, the
Perfect.
PCT, I would say southbound is definitely more solitude. Like I think like 5 to 10% of hikers go south. So if I were to do it again, I might go northbound. Um, but I just found that like it was a much more like nature ingrained in experience. The AT was more like established communities along the trail, and
Sure.
it was
Okay.
definitely a more social trail. The PCT, while still social on trail, like you go through much more remote areas. Um, and coming from the East Coast, that was a big draw for me. Like I wanted to experience that feeling of being like immersed in the woods and like being reliant on myself. Like if anything went wrong, it was like I'd have to
Yeah.
like be more careful, right?
Right.
and on the JMT, you experienced that. That was like probably the most
Yep.
remote section.
Right.
Um, but I also found like the Sierra and Washington to be my favorite sections of the PCT. So if you haven't hiked in Washington, that's one reason to do it, because it's like
Oh,
incredible, incredible. I have
yeah.
some footage of Washington, and I'm like looking back on it, I'm like, I might just go hike it again. I had a person who I was hiking with finish at the Canadian border, go to Seattle, drive back to the PCT like 3 days later because they wanted to hike Washington southbound again.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like unmatched. It was so beautiful.
You know, I think that I've always said that I think the North Cascades National Park is the most underrated national park in the US.
Yeah, yeah. It's definitely hard to get to. Like it's like three
Yeah.
hours from Seattle. Um,
Yep.
but it's worth a trip for sure.
Yeah, and I didn't so when I lived in Oregon, we would go up there a lot of times and we would so something in the North Cascades is called the Bulger List. It's 100
Hmm.
highest mountains in Washington, yeah.
Yeah,
And so we would try to get some of those ticked off and things. And so it was a long drive, but man, it is so beautiful up there.
I
I mean,
know.
it really kicks the shit out of Oregon, I'll tell you that.
Hmm.
I mean,
I mean, don't get me
Oregon's cool, it's
wrong.
got the volcanoes,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah.
I was I was blown away by it. Um, there was I'm trying to think of. I remember when I went out there in 2021 when I had to get off
Yeah.
trail in the North Cascades. They were having. Do you remember there being a heat wave? I don't know if you were out there in 2021.
And yeah,
It was in
what
July.
month?
It was like
Yeah,
late
because
June, early July, 2021.
it was late June 2021. I remember this because it was right before I left for the CT. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
Mhm.
like pretty much in Canada and it's 110 degrees outside. Like
Yeah, yeah,
what
yeah.
is happening?
They called it the heat dome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember
Yeah.
this. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
so that's what I started my hike in. Like we camped out at Hearts Pass the day before. We got lunch in Mazama, which is this like little
Yeah.
village there. And it was like 100, almost 110 degrees. I'm like, how am I going to hike in this? But then
And
you
this
go
is
up.
Washington. What the
Yeah,
hell?
this is
Yeah.
Washington. Obviously,
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
in the valley. We went up to Hearts Pass. It ended up getting down to like the 40s that night.
Oh,
And
yeah.
the next
Oh,
day
really?
wasn't too bad. Yeah.
Yeah,
So it
dude.
was definitely like deceiving at first, but
Yeah, yeah.
that was just
Right
a little
on,
thing
dude.
I remembered.
So you had mentioned earlier in the podcast here that you quit your job teaching at one point to do the trail. So what is your current job right now? Are you total creator? Are you still substituting? Like what's you up to now?
I am. So I did end up going full time with the video stuff right now. So I'm doing that
Mhm.
full time. It's been going well. That's since like July. So I
Okay.
finished last school year. I didn't want to like leave mid-year. I just felt like that would be unfair to the kids in the school. And so I finished the school year. During the summer, I told them I wasn't going to come back. So I've been doing like the full-time creator thing for about 6, 7 months now. And
Woo!
it's been pretty awesome. It's been cool. It's definitely different. I feel like I'm a social person, and going from teaching and interacting with hundreds of people every day to working in my apartment, it's been challenging for me. Just kind of like getting out there, but I've got some friends. My girlfriend lives not too far away, so I'm able to like socialize, but I've definitely found it tough. Kind of motivating and making sure I'm staying on task, but it's been
Yeah.
pretty incredible. I feel really lucky to be able to do it.
Yes, I agree. And
Yeah.
I would imagine, do you ever have that feeling that when you're not working and you're kind of having fun or something, especially if it's during the week or something, there's always that thing in the back of your head. You're thinking, shit,
Yeah.
I need to be, I'm taking time away from work. I making money. I need to survive. All that. Does that
Yeah.
ever go through
Yeah.
your
Cause
head?
it's fully on you, right? Like
Fully.
you don't
Yeah.
have a consistent paycheck.
No.
I need to keep telling myself, like, whatever I put into it, I'll get out of it.
Yeah.
Which has been a challenging, like, line to, like, straddle, like being able to, like, enjoy my time, enjoy the freedom of not having this, like,
Right.
job that I'm tied to, but, also making sure I'm, like, getting the work done and still trying to have fun with it at the same time. So it's been a very, like, tough thing to adjust to, but I think I'm slowly, like, getting the hang of it and making it work.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Dude, that is so true. That's such a great analogy that you put. Yeah, you have to enjoy the time because you're not on this 9 to 5 schedule anymore. But
Hmm.
at the same time, it's almost more rigid because, y as you said, the more you put into it, the more you get out of it. So that's always playing in the back of your head. But
Yeah.
it is a privilege to actually just kind of do whatever you want to do. Take off a Friday if you want to go do this or do that or whatever. And that's been the best thing for me. And that's ultimately the reason I did it for myself because I wanted to. If it was a nice day out, I'm going outside. I don't
Yeah.
want to be inside in the office.
Yep. Exactly. So I've been kind of managing that. I did end up taking time off between like Christmas and New Year's. I took
Mhm.
like a little like 4 or 5 days off, which was really nice.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's been an adjustment for sure. But I'm loving it, making just funny videos. It's been a
Yeah.
good time.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
so you're really big on Instagram and TikTok currently. Which one do you find is more enjoyable for yourself to post on, to interact on, connect with your audience? I think I have probably your answer in mind. I bet I know what it is, but yeah, which
Yeah.
one do you find
I'd
better?
say I'd say Instagram for sure.
Yeah.
I like the consistency. I found that like the audience that I have on Instagram is a little more like in tune with the types of videos I make.
True.
My TikTok community is a lot of it because that was the original platform that I posted on. I really didn't start posting consistently on Instagram until this past like a little over a year ago, last January.
Oh, wow. Mhm.
Um, so TikTok I've been posting on since like 2020. A lot of the people that I have on there have seen me through all phases of my content creation career, right? So they've seen
Mhm.
like the trending audio phase, they've seen like my on the PCT videos, they've seen all of that. So some of them might be there for different reasons, whereas I think Instagram is a little more people are there for these types of videos, and I found that to be a
Yeah,
little more fun to engage with.
I agree. I
So
agree,
yeah,
and it's easier to communicate with them
yeah, yeah.
on DM or whatever it is you wanna do. TikTok is I don't know, it's just a little bit harder,
I
I
feel like
I
it can be
feel.
clunky sometimes, you know, like
Yeah.
stories aren't really a thing as much on there from at least
No.
for me.
Oh
Um,
god, no.
yeah, yeah. So I think
What's
the
the point of a
stories,
story on TikTok,
I
dude?
know.
I don't know. I tried doing that. At first, I was stoked that they're doing that, then I'm like, "This gets, like, 10 views."
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
Nobody's on
why
there
would I.
to look at stories. They're on there to scroll through the feed page. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
that's just the nature of the platforms. But
yeah,
I found Instagram to be a little more consistent, a little more fun to
yeah.
interact with folks. So
Now, walk us through your typical content creation process. Let's say, all right, you go on a road trip or something and you pass by this town and you think, "Oh, that would be a great place to make a video about the culture and the people there." Okay?
yeah.
So as soon as that idea gets into your head, where do you take it from there?
So I have it's so unofficial. I use the notes app on my phone to kind
Mhm.
of write down ideas, and that's where I do my scripts.
Okay.
Sometimes I use my computer if I'm like in a coffee shop. I don't want to just be like on my phone, but
Yeah.
um, it all kind of goes down on my phone. So I'll like get suggestions. I have a list of concepts that I want to make in the future. Um, and then each day I'll usually take one of those concepts, I'll start drafting a script, I'll find a name for the character, and I'll just like
Favorite
put
part, yeah.
together, yeah, yeah. And I just put together like 6 to 7 lines for that topic. So say it's like every person who lives in Bend, Oregon, right? So I'll be like, what up? My name's this, or I'll introduce the name somehow. And then I'll like find 5 to 6 or 7 talking points about that town and like
Mhm.
things people might do there and just kind of
Yeah.
like build that character to be like an all-encompassing person who represents that city.
Yeah.
Um, but it's just a process of like writing the script in my phone. I used to be in the process of like writing the script and then filming the video in one day.
Mhm.
I've been toying around with the idea of like having a scripting day and then having a filming day.
Yeah.
And that's just I feel like I'm not as productive that way. I
Mhm.
like having that like concrete result after like my day of work. Like I like having that
Same,
video,
bro.
like seeing the whole process go from one end to
Mhm.
the other.
100%.
Um, and so I'm kind of shifting back to that script and film the same day and just do one video a day.
Got
So
you. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Because now what's your I mean, because obviously you are your own boss currently. What
Mhm.
what's your days look like? And I know it's probably I guarantee it's shifted from when you stopped working your 9 to 5 in July to now. I bet you because mine has been shifting all over the place. What
Oh yeah.
is optimal for myself, right? So what's your day look like currently?
So right now I've got like I'm at my desk now. I have like this whiteboard and I'll do like different
Hell
concepts that I
yeah.
have coming down the pipe here. Um, Mainly like sponsored posts. So kind of like
Mhm.
if any brand reached out and they want to kind of make a comedic video about their brand, I'll like communicate with them. I'll fire off some emails with them and we'll come up with a concept and then I'll send them a script and then I'll send them a video draft. So it's kind of a back and forth for that. So a lot of my day is sending emails with brands. Um, I'll designate like an hour or two to script a video usually in the
Mhm.
morning and after I do some emails. And then I'll usually like go to the gym in the middle of the day, get a workout
Same.
in, like get
Yeah.
out.
I'm
Yeah.
a middle day gym guy
Yeah.
too, bro. Yep.
Yeah. I can't do the morning. I won't get a good
Me neither.
workout. The afternoon is just packed at the gym. So I'll do like a little before lunch or a little after lunch gym
My
sesh.
dude. Yep.
And then usually in the afternoon, if I wasn't super productive in the morning and I'll film the video in the afternoon. Um, and then start to get the concept for the next day prepared. So
Wow, okay, so
yeah.
you are cranking stuff out. Eh, so my philosophy with the gym in the afternoon is and again, we were talking about this before the podcast, but
Yeah.
there's no way I would do gym in the morning because that's my creative time. That's where my
Yeah.
brain's firing, man. It's
Yeah.
firing, firing, firing. So if I do gym, that doesn't make sense. I'm wasting an hour and a half, an hour or whatever doing
Yep.
that, right? So I'm gonna do be creative in the morning. I'm gonna get a reset with the gym in the afternoon,
Hmm.
right? And
Yep.
then in the later afternoon, now I'm gonna be doing answering more emails, stuff like that. Stuff that isn't as damn creative, at least.
Hmm.
But yeah, man, I love that. I am a
Yeah.
total
Yeah.
midday
So we're
gym
pretty
guy.
similar in that way, I guess. But
Yeah.
I was thinking like when is your most creative part of the day? Like you said the morning. Is there any like specific moment or task that you're doing that sparks creativity? Like you think of an idea when you're doing this thing, like whether you're like working out or when you're driving or when you're falling
Mm.
asleep.
Oh, dude. I mean, anytime that I am in obviously nature, and I feel like that's probably so cliche to say, but
No, I get it.
anytime that I have no distractions for hours at a time or you know what I mean? Like you don't have you're not really looking at your phone, you're not getting notifications on your emails or anything like that. When I am distraction free is when I have the best
Yeah.
ideas come to me. So whether that is split boarding, whether that's whatever, doing anything like that. But you know, that's hard for me to do a lot of times because anytime that I'm at least during a regular day, I'm taking a walk or I'm doing anything, I'm always listening to a podcast because I'm wanting more education, doing
Yeah.
something or whatever, right? So I have to consciously be unplugged to
Hmm.
get those creative ideas. How about you?
That's cool. I was gonna say when I'm falling asleep, like right when I'm
Really?
about to go to bed. Yeah, that's when I'm most like I think of these
Interesting.
things. So I like to have like the evening, I like to have a concept in mind for the next day. And while I'm like falling asleep, I'll think of these lines that I can include in the video. And I'll like falling asleep. Like I have no problem falling asleep, but I try and like designate 20 minutes of just laying there thinking about nothing but this video.
No way.
And I'll like every 2 seconds, like roll over, type it into my phone, put my phone down, roll over, type it into my phone. And then so the next day it kind of alleviates that script writing process because I have these prompts that I can start with and roll with. So I
Bro,
found
that's
that's
cool.
the way. Yeah.
That's cool as hell. That's way cooler
Yeah.
than mine. Yeah. I will do the notes app, you know, like when I was on the Uinta Highline, I will or if I'm doing any kind of through hike or something like that, or just small hike or whatever, I'll
Mhm.
put in my notes app, put the title of it, and then anything that comes to me, I'm just anything at all, I'm just putting it in the notes app, right?
Yeah.
And it might not even make any sense at all, but it does at that time, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then I'll look at it after the hike, and then you have all this content, and that's the coolest thing about doing an adventure. You get all this film, man. Then you're busy for another week, two
Yep.
weeks, editing or whatever. I mean, I love that, dude.
Yeah.
Winter's tough though if you're not doing a
Winter's
lot.
so tough. I'm doing a lot of like
Get it?
ski snowboard content right now.
Yeah, good.
That's kind of like what a lot of people are focused on, and
Right.
it's like the only activity that a lot of people are doing right now, like stuff
I
like that.
know,
So I
dude.
do try to like cater my content towards the season and like what activities people might be doing or places they might be
Yeah.
going.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Total seasonality with that type of stuff, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, really? Now, what are what are maybe some other challenges you've had to overcome as an online creator? Because we talked about some of them, or maybe turn back moments that you had, like on the PCT. Has there been any of that being a creator? And how do you get past those things?
Yeah, I think the biggest one, and we kind of touched upon it, was my time management and just kind of like
Okay.
being able to manage being solo and in this like setting of just it being me and not with coworkers or students or anything like that. So kind of overcoming that challenge because sometimes it puts me in a writer's block if I'm just sitting here in the same setting and thinking about like how do I write a comedy video in this state of mind? Like I just can't. And then that kind of
100%.
spirals into I'm not being productive. Like what am I doing? I need to figure something else out or else I'm just like this is a waste of a day. I'm sure you go through that sometimes, right?
My God, bro.
Yeah.
Oh my God. The my biggest risk factor when I am, being my own boss is when I feel like I don't have a productive day. I'm
Mhm.
thinking, what am I doing? I'm a
Yeah.
failure.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna make the I'm gonna be back to a 9 to 5 tomorrow. It's the your head just spirals, man. And
Yeah, no.
I found the best way for me is to just I have to have constant action of
Mhm.
whether or not I can't be sulking in those thoughts because it will just go downhill.
It eats you alive, yeah. I feel like we all go through that in some way. So,
Yeah.
you're not alone out there if you're hearing this.
Well, and that's the coolest thing about being your own boss because I like what you said. The more you put in, the more typically you get out. You reap what you sow in
Mhm.
that, but it's also the inverse is also true. If you're not putting in a lot, you're not going to get a lot out.
Exactly.
So I think it takes a certain personality and a certain person because I feel like some people that might maybe get this privilege that we have right now, if they're not as OCD as we are about that type of stuff,
Mhm.
it can go
Yeah.
downhill. And
Yeah,
then
it's not
the
for everyone.
no. Yeah. So, dude.
I
Well, so where do you feel like your channel is going? What's next for your channel? Do you want to get on? I know you're doing some stuff on YouTube right now. It sounds like you have the documentary and things. Do you want to do live comedic stand up?
Dude, that
What's the
terrifies
future
me.
hold for Matt?
Stand-up is, like, my biggest fear, I think, and
Oh, okay.
obviously, I've heard all these cliches, like, "You gotta face your fears." I don't know if I
Yeah.
can face that one, man. That's, like, terrifying.
Yeah.
Like, I'll make an exception. That's one fear I'm not gonna face. I don't know.
I
Like,
got it, dude.
I'll
Yeah.
start a podcast, like, I don't mind if, like,
Yeah, yeah.
a million people watch a video online, but if I have to stand up there and face them,
Live.
that's whew. I
Well,
don't
you're a
know.
funny dude. You could definitely do
You
it.
think so? I don't know. We'll
I
see.
think
We'll
so.
see. Maybe
Yeah.
one day I'll go to like an open mic and I'll bomb a couple times and I'll be like, all right,
Yeah.
we'll make it
Alright.
through. Who knows?
Hey,
But I'll
that could
keep
be
you
some
posted on
content,
that.
though. That could be some
Yeah.
content, man.
Yeah. You're right. But yeah, I'm thinking other than that, I would love to like get into the podcast space. I think that would be really cool.
Yeah.
Um, I think it would also be cool to maybe do something with the characters I've created, whether I don't know
Yeah.
how I would maybe like on the podcast I could have like episodes as those characters or like
Yes.
interview like myself on a podcast as like me and then the character. I feel like that could be pretty cool.
Funny as shit.
Um but I also want to like travel a little bit more and just like meet people, meet some of the people who watch my videos as well. It's pretty cool to
Yeah.
like if I go to Colorado or a place where I've made a video that's kind of like popped off, a lot of people will come up to me and they'll be like, "What's up, Bo fan?" And they'll actually say hi and be like in my character. I don't know how to respond to it. I'm just like, "Sup?"
I don't know how to Oh, man, that is cool as hell, man. Yeah, it feels you probably feel very welcomed even in these cities maybe you've only visited a couple times or not even at all.
Yeah, yeah. I'm like, they're like,
Huh.
"How do you know so much about Boise?" I'm like, "Reddit," you know?
Yeah, no shit, right? ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome, man. Well,
Yeah.
dude, first of all, this has been a great time, dude. You
Yeah.
are first of all, you have the podcast voice. You could totally do podcasts. You got the
That's what people have said. Like my voice is kind of interesting, so maybe I
yeah,
could
yeah.
leverage that a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, man, for sure. So, dude, you're gonna be successful in anything that you do, man. And
Thank you.
it's been a great time, hearing your process of content creation, talking about the trails and things like that. I guess one thing too before we wrap up, are you thinking about the CDT at all?
I've considered it. I do want to like I don't know. I've thought about it. Again, the CDT is like a very like isolated trail. I feel like when I think of the CDT, I feel like I'm gonna be walking aside like a grizzly bear for 100 miles. You know, like it's just gonna be me and the grizzly. And so I just
You can ride it.
that's been a little scary. So if I got like somebody to hike it with, or
Yeah.
I don't know, if I found the right time and the right people to go with, I would definitely consider it because I do miss the
Yeah.
life of a through hike. I think that's
Mhm.
sitting in my apartment. I'm like, damn, I want to be in the mountains and get out there and like see this spot of or
Right.
this part of the country. But I don't know. Maybe in a few years, or maybe it's like a later in life type of thing. I do want to do it eventually, but I've also been thinking about the long trail. So if you're ever out thinking about doing it,
Interesting.
yeah, let me know.
Okay. Well, I'll have to rewatch the our podcast here so I can get sold on it again. But yeah, man, freaking A. We'll
Yeah,
see.
I think you'd crush it. It's also like a quick,
Ah,
like if you're in good shape, you can do it in a couple weeks, you know.
right, right.
So
That was kind of the thing that's alluring for me because I want to do. I'll do the Wonderland today. Up around Rainier, or not
yeah,
today. This year,
I was
sorry.
gonna say
Today
90
I'm doing it. Yeah,
miles.
today after this podcast, I'm gonna go up and do it in the snow. So anyway, but yeah, no, so I'll do that this year. And I really am interested in making a really kick-ass documentary with that type of stuff. And
Yeah.
in the past, I'm really interested in going fast, but now with that type of stuff, I'm kind of more interested in filming it really nicely and really
Yep.
telling a good story through it. So that's what I'll do this year, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll see, man.
Sweet. Right
Who
on.
knows?
Yeah.
There's have you ever planned stuff early in the year and then it's
Yep.
totally different 3 months,
Yep.
4 months later?
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah. Like
dude?
I bought ticket. I'm a big college basketball fan, and I
Yeah.
already bought my flights for the Final Four in April. I'm literally
Oh,
like,
wow.
I'm going. But like April's gonna roll around, and I'm gonna have like a wedding that weekend. It's gonna
100%. It's gonna be something's gonna be thrown in there. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Well, awesome, dude. Well, so first of all, where can people find you on TikTok and Instagram if they haven't already found you? I'm sure that they have. And then tell us a little bit before we leave, just a little bit about the front country apparel that you got going.
Yeah, so you can find me at Matt's Lion, MATTSLYON, on TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram. And then Front Country Apparel, it's a little clothing brand line that I had going. It was inspired by like my video about 5 panel hats. I feel like a lot of people wear like this style of hat, which I do as well. And so I originally made like a hat, like this hat, and that turned into just like one-liners from my videos, putting it on shirts and like some other trucker hats, t-shirts, sweatshirts. So that's all on my Instagram. It's right in the link in my bio, so you can find more info on that there.
Sweet.
But just a little fun thing I got going for the videos. So
Yeah, I love the name of it. I
yeah,
really think that's cool. Yeah,
thank you,
front country
thank you.
stove. Sweet, dude. All right. Well, this has been great. If y'all are listening, leave a 5-star rating. You know what to do. Leave a comment. Say how much you love this episode. And Matt, that'd be awesome. All
Yeah,
right.
it was awesome
So
talking. Thank you, thank you.
you bet, dude. All right. We'll stop the recording.